Good morning and welcome to this licensing hearing. The first item on the agenda is the election of the chair, and I understand that members would like Councillor Melly to chair the meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, members. I'll turn over now to Councillor Melly as chair of the hearing.
Thank you, Fiona. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the slightly delayed start time, but welcome to this licensing hearing. It is being live webcast and it's also being recorded, so a recording of the hearing will be made available publicly on the council's website later as well. Right, just want to introduce everybody who's on screen, starting with the members who will be making up this hearing panel. We've got Councillor Anne Hook, Councillor Ian Cuthbertson and myself, Councillor Rachel Melly. I'll be chairing this panel of three. We also have some council officers with us, Leslie Cook, Head of Licensing, Fiona from Democratic Services, who's being shadowed by a colleague, and Sandra Brannigan, who's also being shadowed by a colleague. We also have the applicant here. James Staton, I believe you're representing the applicant. Could you please introduce yourself and everyone you have with you as witnesses as well?
Yes, I'm James Staton, a solicitor from Schofield Sweeney. We've got Nick Bradley to my right, who is the director from the applicant company. To my left, with Daisy Drydle Mortimer, who is the proposed designated premises supervisor, and the front of house manager, Jessica Giacolone, from the company, from the applicant as well.
All right, thank you and welcome. And then we have some representatives as well. I'll start with Mr. Charalambides. Could you please introduce yourself and who you're representing?
Ma'am, yes. Good morning. I am principally instructed by Pippa Allen. I think you'll find her representation number 22, but because everything is redacted, you may not, if I'm wrong, Democratic Services will correct me. Chris Siggins, Roma Burnside, Anthony Langham and Marion Hodgson, as well as Nick Bowley and Martin Young, though I understand all the residents have been feeding it, many residents rather, have been feeding in instructions to Pippa Allen, who is in contact with me via my phone on WhatsApp. So if you're looking at me and I'm typing away, I'm not playing Candy Crush, I'm taking instructions. And I also need to give an honourable mention to several local residents who haven't made reps, but have contributed to the fund for me. So I represent at least 7 households in the immediate vicinity. Thank you.
All right, thank you and welcome. And then we also have another representative, Tom Mitchell.
Good morning, ma'am. Yes, I'm. My representations are at page 99. I'm a resident of Holgate. I have 2 parents at the school. I'm also chair of governors at St Paul's Primary School, which is not mentioned in my representation simply because I hadn't spoken. Well, we hadn't had a discussion at the school this time. The school has actually since seen my representation, so I can speak on behalf of the head teacher at least. But my representations are my own.
Okay, all right, thank you very much and welcome. Okay, so before we get started with determining this application, we just have a few other agenda items to go through, starting with declarations of interest. So can I just ask the panel members whether you have any disclosable pecuniary interest or any other registrable interest to declare? No? Oh, yeah, Councillor Cuthbertson.
I have no interest except to say that I have visited both schools in connection with council activities at least a year ago.
All right, thank you. Councillor Hook? No? Oh, no, me neither.
No,
okay.
no.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to just have a resolution about excluding press and public from part of the proceedings. I'd like to propose that when after the hearing's over, when the subcommittee have our deliberations, I'd like to propose that we exclude press and public from that part of the proceedings on the grounds that the public interest in excluding the public outweighs the public interest in that part of the meeting taking place in public under Regulation 14 of the Licensing Act 2003. Can I have consent for that from the panel members?
Agreed.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, thank you. And then we also have some minutes to approve from a licensing hearing in December 2022. Does anybody have any changes to make to those minutes? I just have one, just a small typo. It's on page 18 of our agenda pack, where it says what the options are available to the subcommittee. In option 2, grant the licence with modified additional conditions imposed by the licensing committee. That should be subcommittee. But apart from that small change, I'm happy to approve those minutes as an accurate record. Yeah, thumbs up from Councillor Cuthbertson. Councillor Hook, are you happy to approve those minutes? All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get on with determining this application. As part of the agenda pack that you've all been sent, there's an outline of the procedure. Can I just check that everybody has seen that, read it, understood it, is happy with it? Yeah. I would just like to make a small change from it, though. You will have seen, I can't remember what paragraph it is now, 18 maybe from memory. It says that if the panel makes a decision today, we'll return to the public meeting to announce that decision. But just because we're on Zoom and we don't know how long our deliberations will be, we don't want to leave people just hanging in front of a computer not knowing when we might pop back on screen. I'd like to propose that instead, when the public hearing's over, we close this Zoom meeting, and when a decision's made, all the applicant and representatives will be informed in writing as soon as possible instead. So yeah, small change to the procedure. I hope everyone's happy with that. Can I just check that everybody has seen or received the additional documents that were sent round, and they were published as well, I think, on the council website. Has everybody seen them, received them? I'm seeing nods from everyone. Yep, okay, excellent. Okay then, so can I please ask the licensing manager to introduce the report for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. This is an application for the grant of a premise licence for Holgate Bridge Hotel, 106 to 108 Holgate Road, York. The licensable activities applied for are late night refreshment from 2300 hours to 0500 hours each day, restricted to hotel residents and their guests. Supply of alcohol on and off the premises for 24 hours each day for hotel residents. Excuse me, and from 0800 to midnight for members of the public, with opening hours from 0800 to midnight each day. A copy of the application and plan can be found at Annex 1 of the report. The premises is described in the application as a new 12-room boutique hotel with 18 covered dining room, 12 cover basement bar and 36 cover garden space. An overview of the circumstances when regulated entertainment activities are not licensable can be found at Annex 2. As part of the application, the operating schedule submitted by the applicant showing how the licensing objectives would be met can be found at paragraphs 11 to 15 on pages 26 to 30 of the report. I can confirm that the premises are not located within the cumulative impact assessment area and that the consultation process was carried out correctly. There are no representations before you from responsible authorities. Public Protection have negotiated the wording of a condition relating to the use of the external area. The agreed condition can be found at Annex 3. There have been 24 relevant representations from other persons. The list of representatives can be found at Annex 4. Their representations predominantly based around the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance, and their representations can be found at Annex 5. A map showing the general area around the premises can be found at Annex 6. The committee has the following options when making your decision. Option 1, grant the licence in the terms applied for. Option 2, grant the licence with modified additional conditions imposed by the licensing committee. Option 3, grant the licence to exclude any of the licensable activities to which the application relates and modify, add conditions accordingly. Option 4, you can reject the application. As the chair has said, an agenda supplement has been published since this agenda was published last week. And that is a brief overview of the report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Leslie. So got an opportunity now to ask questions of the licensing manager, starting with the applicant. Mr. Staten, do you have any questions for Leslie?
No questions for the licensing manager.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chowlambidis?
Thank you. No questions.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
And any questions from the subcommittee? Yeah, Councillor Cuthbertson.
Yeah,
And
thank
then
you.
Councillor.
Can I just check with Leslie Cook that despite allegations, one of the representations, that the correct format and placing of notices has been carried out in connection with this application?
You mean the display of the blue public notice, Councillor Cuthbertson?
The public notices, yes. The public
Yes.
notices.
Displayed correctly.
Fine. Thank you.
Councillor Hook, you had a question.
Yes, I had the same one as Councillor Cuthbertson, and also I could be completely wrong, but isn't hotel guests always get 24-hour alcohol supply anyway? Or am I wrong on that?
I'm sorry that broke up. I didn't hear the question.
Yeah. Can I turn my screen off because I'm having enormous troubles with my internet connection? Hold on. My question. This better now. I thought that you always had 24-hour alcohol supply for guests of hotels, or am I wrong?
For residents of hotels.
Yeah, the ones who are staying in the room, because it's like their house, isn't it?
Yeah, under the 1964 Act, if you applied for the type of license, which was for a hotel, you got 24 hours for any residents of the hotel. Under the Licensing Act, you have to apply for what hours you want to sell alcohol, whether they're a resident of the hotel or just somebody going in to use a public bar.
All right, so it has changed. Sorry, that's me. Okay, just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
No problems.
Thank you. I also have one question, which was about one of the representatives in their written representation had a concern about what would happen hypothetically in the future if other neighbouring properties around the hotel were acquired and incorporated into the hotel, and what that would mean, what would be allowed under this licence if the area of the premise was increased. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about that.
If they purchased one of the adjoining properties and wanted to extend their hotel into that property, and they wish to extend the licensed area as well, they would have to apply to vary their license.
Could alcohol, is it just the sale of alcohol that wouldn't be possible on a neighbouring property, or would consumption of alcohol be allowed under this license? It would
all depend. Sorry to interrupt you then, Councillor. It would all depend on what how the operator was intending to operate the premises. So they have applied for on and off provision. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the page which have got their licensing objectives listed. All right, so they have agreed that they have requested on and off sales. However, they have put a condition within their application that off sales would be in a sealed container. So any off sale leaving the licensable area that is on the plans that have been submitted with this application can only leave as an off sale in a sealed container. So they couldn't take an open pint from a licensed area into an unlicensed area. All right, unless the Business and Planning Act remains, and that we don't know where we stand with the Business and Planning Act at the moment.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the panel for Leslie?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, where have we got to? Okay, right, so Mr. Staton, you have an opportunity now to present your case on behalf of the applicant. If you could try to keep it to 15 minutes if possible, please, but of course, you know, do give us any information that you feel we need when making our determination.
Thank you, Ma'am. The dealing with the point you just raised a moment ago, I think it's whether any adjoining property was bought up. Well, that's entirely.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a problem, Mr. Charlambides? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I think some of us are not switching our microphones off when other people are speaking. I think Councillor Cuthbertson, at the moment, you're not switched off, and there's a bit of feedback, so I'm not hearing Mr. Stanton properly. So perhaps, ma'am, through you, if you could remind everyone when not speaking to switch their microphones off, that would be super helpful.
Good point. Yes, that's a good reminder. Yes, whenever not speaking, if people could try to remember to mute themselves, it just does stop there from being any echoes or background noise. Thank you. Yes, sorry to stop you in your stride, Mr. Staton, but please start again.
I think a useful point by Mr. Charlambides. Thank you. Yes, that's entirely academic, ma'am, because there are no plans to purchase any other properties in the neighbourhood. So, but the answer given by your licensing officer was, of course, correct. I mean, the position is, ma'am, that the applicant is looking to establish a new boutique hotel business on the site.
Chair, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm really sorry. I've just noticed that Councillor Cuthbertson has potentially left. I just want to ensure that he may still be in the room and able to hear, but I don't know. And I just want to ensure that he can hear all the proceedings. Sorry, Chair, to interrupt.
Councillor Cuthbertson, were you in earshot? Sorry, my microphone. Were you in earshot at all times, Councillor Cuthbertson? Could you hear what was being said? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, it's a slight conflict with the postman coming to the door and my wife not being able to answer it. I missed that.
Sorry, do you mind starting again, Mr. Staton?
I'll start again.
Sorry, third time lucky.
Sorry, it was
the point latterly raised about any plans to acquire other property is entirely academic, because there are no plans to acquire other properties. And obviously the answer given by the licensing officer was correct. You know, any change would have to be either a new license application, depending on the size, or a variation. But as I say, that's entirely academic. I mean, what the applicant's looking to achieve here is to open a boutique hotel on the Holgate Road on the site of what was an existing hotel, albeit unlicensed. The plan is to upgrade and offer a high quality experience to residents and diners at the new Holgate Hotel, if the license is granted. The property, ma'am, is grade 2 listed, dating back to the mid-19th century. There is some redecoration, refurbishment going on, which is stripping out modern panelling and what have you. The former and the original ceiling roses, for instance, have been exposed. But what the applicant is looking to achieve is to have a 12-bedroom hotel with a small bar with about 12 covers, for a modest-sized restaurant, and an outside dining area for use in those times of the year when outside dining might be feasible. It wants to supply residents with alcohol throughout the day, or have the possibility to, from 0000 hours to 2400 hours, and for non-residents between 0800 hours and 2400 hours, albeit with the first part of the day for non-residents only with link to a meal. So that would maybe be, for instance, a wedding breakfast or a wedding party where people would come for breakfast and maybe have a champagne. But it's It's not, ma'am, drink is not, the sale of alcohol is not the prime mover here. What the applicant is looking for is to establish a upmarket quality offering to visitors to York, where they can stay in a boutique hotel, facility to dine and enjoy a drink with their meal or afterwards in the small bar. There would be an offering for outsiders to dine in the restaurant and in the outside area, but because of the size constraints for the premises, that would have to be by pre-booking only, because the restaurant has only some 16 covers. The proposed bar is 12 covers and some 32 covers in the outside area. But of course, the outside area, ma'am, will be constrained its use by weather conditions. So for much of the year, there will be no dining or use of the outside facility. It's really a summer activity, and more likely the majority of service will be evenings outside the normal working stroke school day. The applicant is looking to sell sustainable local wines, craft beers, bottled, there'll be no draft beer, some selected spirits, a local, I think a Yorkshire whiskey, and local gins with soft drinks and water. But what the applicant is not aiming to do is to replicate the offering round the corner of the Volunteer Arms, where people, they're not looking for a bar. There'll be no draft, a public bar, as it were. There'll be no draft beer. It's really aimed at residents and diners, and that's the focus of the business. As I say, ma'am, the property was formerly a hotel, but without a license. And there are other similar premises already in the area. 2 doors down, 112, 114 Holgate Road, there is the Homewood House Hotel. That was previously, the owners of that previously owned the premises under review. That doesn't have a license, but there are other licensed premises round about. At the corner of Watson Street and Holgate Road, there is the Premier Convenience Store, which has a off license from 0800 hours to 2300 hours on weekdays, and Sundays 1000 hours to 2230 hours. The St Paul's Lodge at 120 Holgate Road has a premises license covering a whole host of activities which are mentioned at paragraph 6.5 of the applicant's case summary, which includes live music, recorded music, facilities for making music, late night refreshment, and that property can supply alcohol to residents between 1000 hours and 0200 hours the following morning. There's the Astor Hostels, which was formerly the Holgate Hill Hotel at 124 Holgate Road, has a premises license for recorded music, late night refreshment and the supply of alcohol, and that's between 1000 hours and midnight on weekdays and 1200 hours and 2330 on Sundays, but at any time, I think, by residents and those being entertained by residents. And across the road at 129, there's the Kalima Hotel, which is a Best Western, again offering alcohol, but no restriction on the hours for which residents can buy alcohol for themselves or their guests. And the Volunteer Arms is around the corner at 5 Watson Street. So the idea, ma'am, that this is a change, that's a major change to what's on offer in the area, and is going to be open the floodgates, which would suggest the representations that have been made in those which are set out in Annex 5 to hordes of people coming to these premises is misconceived, ma'am. It's a small boutique hotel offering 12 letting bedrooms. There is an outside area, it's accepted, but that is immediately behind the building. Beyond that is the car park, which will take 12 vehicles. To the eastern side is student accommodation in a number of properties, and the eastern boundary is a brick wall with trees and shrubs growing above it. The southern boundary is Watson Street, but part of that is shielded from the neighbouring area by the annex of the Homewood House Hotel, which is a separate block and which sits at the northern end of the Homewood House Hotel property and screens the property at New Holgate Hotel from, for instance, Mrs. Allen's or Ms. Allen's property at the corner of St Paul's Square. And the western boundary of the property adjoins the home of the former owners of the hotel who operate the Homewood House Hotel, and the applicant has agreed with them that the height of the fence between the two properties will be increased with trellis work. There will be planters separating the outside dining area from the car park, which again will seek to deaden noise. It's anticipated that the outside dining area will largely be an evening venue, but it will be cleared by 10 p.m. each night, 2200 hours. And whilst it is proposed that there should be low-level background recorded music played, the applicant will monitor the situation and make sure that noise levels are restricted. In the case summary, ma'am, we've said towards the end that the applicant is quite content to ensure that the car park is only used by residents after 2000 hours, and the rear gate will be closed by the night manager at 2200 hours. So there'll be no coming and going from the car park into Watson Street from 10 p.m. It'll be made clear to people booking that the car park is principally for residents. They will be directed to the car park from with their booking by email. Those booking simply an evening meal, for instance, in the dining room or the outside area, will be directed to access the property by the front door and not directed to the car park, because that it is of a size where it would only really cater for residents. I mean, there are representations, ma'am, which have been made about the comings and goings to the car park, but of course it's really no more than the situation before, when the same area was used as a car park for the Homewood House, the Holgate Bridge Hotel, which at that time had 16 letting bedrooms. The number is now reduced to 12 in this plan. So it isn't, ma'am, as if there's going to be a significant increase in traffic and concern for road safety. The activities in the rear area are likely to be evening times for service of meals to diners, but in a restricted area, in a restricted period, because it's going to be more of a summer activity than diners are unlikely to want to be outside in November, and even in the summer period, the hotel will have to keep an eye on the weather forecasts when looking at bookings, because although we've had an extremely healthy period of dry weather recently, and that's unusual even in York. So the outside area, whilst clearly causing concern to residents, in the applicant's view, is should not be regarded as a particular problem area. The alcohol provision is, well, as I say, just touching on the rear area again, the schools nearby, as I say, traffic should be no different to what was before. Most guests will not be checking in or checking out. I would have thought at the times schools are parents are dropping off schools, and at the early hours, early time in the morning, any diners are likely to be residents taking breakfast in the interior of the hotel, not in the rear area. Likewise, at picking up time at the end of the day, most residents will be probably out and about enjoying York and Yorkshire during that time, and the rear area will only become more active as the evening progresses up to the from sort of early evening, when people want to dine outside, if the weather permits. So the applicant says that the thought that the children being picked up or dropped off at school are going to be exposed to drunkenness and unpleasant scenes is entirely wrong. This is not a typical vertical drinking establishment like one might get in the centre of York. This is a quality offering, with the emphasis being on accommodation for residents, to supply of alcohol and food to residents, and to pre-booked diners. I've mentioned the issue of noise. The question of off sales seems to have caused some concern to those in the area. But again, what the applicant says is its off sale offering is a limited offering. It's looking to supply to guests and diners a limited range of wines, Yorkshire distilled whiskey, local craft beers. There is no draft supplies. It's thought that the principal takeaway of alcohol will be guests who have enjoyed a bottle of wine or the local beer, want to take that away with them to wherever they go to live, or people might want to go out for a picnic and buy a bottle of wine to take with their picnic. If people want to come and buy a bottle of beer to consume in the streets or in their own home, they're not going to come to a boutique hotel. They're going to go to the premier convenience store on the corner of Watson Street and Holgate Road. That's not the market that this hotel is looking for. It's looking for limited off sales, as I say, to principally to residents who may want to take away back home with them drinks that they've enjoyed at the hotel, or to take with them to picnics. I mean, what the offering available is, it's looking to provide an experience that is not readily available in York at the moment, a high quality small hotel with good quality food, a range of local alcohol, but it is not looking to have large groups, people standing in the rear garden drinking. That's not what this is about. It's about dining and residents, and pre-booked dining only, so the numbers can be well controlled by the management. A party of 10 is unlikely to be able to find room in the hotel's area anyway. So it's got to be, the management is not investing a large amount of money in planning to have a business which wants to fail. It wants to give a quality offering to a limited clientele, and the thought that the fears of residents and the representatives that this hotel is going to bring in large numbers of people to provide crime, disorder, and public nuisance is, I'm afraid, illusory. There appears to be some frenzy amongst the local residents as to what is going to happen at the property. But Mr. Bradley is investing significant sums in a business he wants to make a success. And what he wants to do is have a business which treats its guests well and treats its adjoining neighbours well. The actions, the operating schedule set out in the application deals with all of the steps that the applicant intends to take to ensure the licensing objectives are met. There is, ma'am, a change.
Sorry, Mr. Staten, you've been speaking for 18 minutes now. Are you close to wrapping up?
Oh,
yeah, all right.
Well, I hope you're not counting my false starts as well within the 18 minutes.
No, I restarted the clock.
Thank you very much. The licensing manager and the agenda says late night refreshment from 11 till 0500 hours. The applicant now would only wish it to be from 11 to midnight. It doesn't want to go beyond that time. So that is a restriction in what the application as set out in the agenda is.
So are you wishing to amend the application then?
Yeah, just by that, yes, it's to reduce the late night refreshment period. It's set out at paragraph 10.3 of the case summary. And it would not be, obviously, late night refreshment would not be in the external area because that would have to close at 10. So it would only be internal late night refreshment till midnight. That's in line, ma'am, with other licensed premises along the same stretch of road. So, ma'am, I'll say no more, but I'd invite you to take on board what's set out in the case summary, the operating schedule, and particularly bear in mind that no representations have been made by responsible authorities such as the police, who clearly are satisfied that the operation meets the proposed operation meets the licensing objectives, and I would ask you to, well, I'll summarise at the end, I suppose, but that's my submission to date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is an opportunity now to ask questions of the applicant, but before we do that, Councillor Hook was off the screen for a little while there. I know for people watching at home on the recording or the live webcast, I think only video participants are visible. So I just want to say that Councillor Hook was in the meeting the whole time, just with their video off. But Councillor Hook, could you just please confirm that you were able to hear? I know you were having some problems hearing earlier. You could hear everything. You were in earshot and you could hear.
Yeah, I could actually. Yeah, I confirm I was listening all the time, and I could actually hear better with it off because I didn't have the bandwidth issues with not having my video on. But I turned it on as often as I could. So,
yes, no, I just wanted to
that.
make sure that everybody knew that you were hearing all of everything being presented. So that's fine. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. So. Yes, there is an opportunity for questions to the applicant now, and we'll start with Mr. Lambides, if you have any questions to the applicant.
Ma'am, thank you very much. I don't have any questions at this time. I'll save my comments for my submissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, do you have any questions to the applicant?
Just one question, actually. It's, what time would guests be booking in to the hotel from?
Mr. Bradley, who's sitting to my left, says most arrivals are 4:35 o'clock onwards. So it's.
Do you have the answer to when you can actually check in from?
What's your earliest check-in time? 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
Okay. I was. Is it right that the hotel advertises 3 p.m. on Booking.com? Does the applicant know?
So we're happy to change that.
Well, if it does, then the applicant's happy to change its comment on Booking.com.
Okay, it does. Yeah, just from looking, it does say 3 p.m. But I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Mel.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the subcommittee for the applicant? Yes, Councillor Cuthbertson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to clarify, in view of Mr. Staten's that this was arrangements were very much in keeping with what happened elsewhere in the vicinity. Can you do what arrangements for off sales of alcohol in any other premises in the area that we've been considering your submission, please, Mr. Staten? I'm particularly thinking of after hours.
Yeah, with the supplementary pack of documents, there is a schedule headed licensed premises immediate area, which gives indications of who else, where else other off sales can take place. For instance, the St Paul's Lodge, well, the Premier convenience store, obviously, is a convenience store with a premises license allowing the sale of alcohol from 0800 hours to 2300 hours weekdays, 10 a.m. to 22:30 Sundays. The St Paul's Lodge allows alcohol to be supplied for consumption on and off the premises. The Astor Hostels allows off sales, but only to residents. And the Kalima Hotel allows off sales to residents only. And the Volunteer Arms around the corner allows off sales between 1000 hours and midnight, Monday to Thursday, 1000 hours to 1 o'clock in the morning, Fridays and Saturdays, and 12 noon to 23:30 on Sundays.
Apologise that I didn't have the supplementary back in front of me. You've just reminded me of what I should have been looking at. I can get out to that in the next few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions, if that's all right. Would you mind just saying the numbers of covers again, please? There was 3 areas that you mentioned cover numbers for. There was a bar, a restaurant, and the outdoor area.
Yes, ma'am. If you look at paragraph 5 of the case summary, there's 16 in the restaurant, the bar 12, and the outside area 32.
Okay. In the plans submitted, I think they're on page 53 of our papers, there's something called a whiskey room that says 7 covers. Is that the bar you're referring to?
That's the bar, and it would be 12. It would be 12.
Be 12. Okay, thank you. And what is the nature of the service? Is it table service, waiter waitress service? Is there bars that people would go to?
It's table service.
Table service. So no bar for people to go to order from. Table service only. Okay. And would you be
no draft beer on offer? It's just you know, principally for dining and residents. You know,
So if we were minded to approve the application and deemed it appropriate, would you be happy to have a condition saying table service only?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. There has been, some of the objections have mentioned the outdoor area and concerns about noise from the outdoor area. And you were saying that those concerns would only be, you're saying it's really only suitable to be used during nice weather, sunny months, that sort of thing. It wouldn't be all the time. But could the space be adapted to be usable at other times? Parasols, outdoor heaters, awnings, that sort of thing?
There are no, well, I suppose in theory, yes, but there are no plans to do that.
Okay.
It's uncovered. There's no proposed covering over it. So that would, you know, that would require a planning permission. It's just an open area.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second, just gonna go through my questions. Yes, so Public Protection have withdrawn their representation, so they're not here to ask questions about with the condition that you've agreed with them. So I'm going to ask you if that's all right. Sorry, let's find it on the papers. It's page 59 for anybody else who's wanting to have a look at it themselves. Yes, the use of the outside area will be restricted between 0800 hours. Hold on a sec. Yes, we restricted between 0800 hours and 2200 hours every day, except for the provision of smoking. So I have 2 questions. One of them is how was that time of 10 p.m. reached? Why was that deemed the most appropriate time rather than 9 p.m. or 11 p.m. or any other options?
That was the advice of the public protection team. They wanted it to be limited to that time.
So that time was proposed by them and agreed to by the applicant?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you. And my other question, it says that the space still could be used for the provision of smoking. So you're happy for the supply of alcohol to cease by 10 p.m, but what about the consumption of alcohol? Would people take their drink out to the outside
No,
while they're smoking?
No drinking outside after 10 o'clock.
So if somebody wanted to go outside to smoke, they would have to leave their drink inside. Right, okay, thank you. You also
the plan was to close the back gate as well at 10 o'clock. So
okay, thank you. You say that you're happy to close the windows later at night to prevent noise escaping. I was just wondering if you'd be more specific about what time windows would be closed, which windows would be closed. You know, the supply of alcohol, you've asked for it to cover whole premises really, including bedrooms and that sort of thing. So which windows would you be proposing to close and at what time?
The dining room, sorry, I am on. Dining room and bar, 10 p.m. Obviously, one couldn't control necessarily guests who might want more fresh air in their room. But the dining room is the rear of the premises. So
Thank you. And my final question is about late night refreshment for members of the public who aren't guests of the hotel. I think you've said that late night refreshment would be for hotel guests only, not members of the public. But you would like to serve alcohol to members of the public till midnight. So does that mean when people are drinking between 11 p.m. and midnight, they would be allowed to have alcohol, but they would be refused food?
Yes. No. No, late night refreshment is till midnight. It's 11 p.m. till midnight.
Yes, but I think you've said that would be for hotel guests only. Let me see if I can find the page. Hold on a second.
I don't think we did.
Hold on a second. In your application, it's page 41 in the agenda pack. You've said, we propose to provide late night refreshment to guests and bona fide guests only.
Well, I stand corrected then, Ma'am. Yes, if we said that, then yes, it would only be residents of the hotel and bona fide guests of the residents.
Okay. That's all of my questions. Do either of the other panel members have any questions for the applicant? No. Okay. In that case, we have time for the representatives to make their case. We'll start with Mr. Cheryl Embides. For the sake of fairness, all the representatives need to have equal time to present. You have about 19.5 minutes to speak rather than the previously advised 15 minutes, just for the sake of fairness. You don't have to use all the time if you don't need it, but that time is available to you. So please go ahead and make your representation.
Mum, thank you very much. That's very kind. So, Mum, you and your colleagues will be familiar that the test you need to apply is contained in Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003. And that test is what are the likely effects of the promotion of the licensing objectives on the grant of this application. It's fascinating to me that in the detailed submission document that you received, when is it, a couple of days ago, not one mention of the licensing objectives. And indeed, in the presentation this morning, we heard reference to the licensing objective, but no actual engagement with them. I'm sure that's not a mistake you and your colleagues will make. Furthermore, Ma'am, you and your colleagues will be familiar with paragraph 1.5 of the Section 182 guidance, which you're required to have to regard to by law. And paragraph 1.5 sets out a number of key aims and purposes which are of vital importance and should be principal aims for everyone involved in licensing at all times. You and your colleagues will, of course, know that it is incumbent on you and a duty upon you to encourage greater community involvement in licensing decisions and give local residents the opportunity to have their say regarding licensing decisions that affect them. In effect, enforcing decisions about the most appropriate licensing strategies in their area. You here have a very lively, engaged civil society that has addressed you with very detailed, very clear evidence for you to take into account. And what they do quite correctly is they invite you and your colleagues to focus upon the location. The Court of Appeal in Hope and Glory really summarizes what the decision of licensing authority is. And it's what is the most, what is suitable for this particular location. So when my friend sort of spends all this time and paper telling you what happens next door, down the road, round the corner, it's just wrong. It's not a question of, well, they've got it, I want it. I mean, that's rather immature and petulant, if you'll forgive me. It fails to address the key of suitability of location. And of course, it fails to really grapple with what is required by way of risk assessment, which is set out at 8.41, 8.42, and those following paragraphs in the section 182 guidance. And so I had great hope when the applicant instructed a solicitor hoping that they properly engage with the licensing objectives and the licensing principles, but they have failed to do so. And in fact, this application, which is ever shifting and ever changing, I mean, you saw for yourself the confusion around late night refreshment and what it meant and who it applied to. They couldn't even answer what time checking was going to be. And this application moves and changes and is an unsettled beast, which is also gravely concerning, because how can you risk assess something you do not know? And on their own evidence, let's just go through this. They say they want a 12-room hotel. Now, that's interesting because they want a small boutique hotel. They don't give you capacity numbers, but on page 38, I think it is, yes, 38 of the description, they say it will be about, you'll see the fondness for imprecise language already at page 38, about 22 people. Except if you go online, as many of the residents have done, you'll see that the double rooms have a maximum capacity of 4 people. The suites have 4 people. The king rooms have 12 people. So if you pause to do the maths, in the application form, they said, we want a small hotel for 22 people. But if it's full for one of these wedding parties or one of these wedding banquets that my friend, Mr. Stanton, refers to, you could have 52 people. So what they say and what they do, already advertising before they've even got a license from you, is completely at odds. Twice the number of people that they're claiming to operate for are going to be fitted in this hotel according to their own advertising. And that is worrying. On the plan, the dining area has 16. On the description on page 38, it has 18. The basement bar has 7 on the plan, whereas in submissions, it has 12. The private dining area is glossed over, but according to the internet, it could have 6. The so-called playroom and kids zone and the small private dining area is being marketed as sort of conference and functions and training facilities, which we have no details about, despite this passionate submission that is saying it will only be a small hotel. It's private, it's small. Well, and then you've got this garden, which is only going to be used in the evening. And I'll come back to that, which 36 covers. So when I do the maths, taking the lowest and the highest, because they can't decide amongst themselves what they will be, the capacity of this venue as a maximum is between 117 and 124 people. Imagine that for a moment. In this predominantly residential area, up to 124 people turning up for a wedding banquet, the race days, because you'll have seen the adverts for the race day offering, and we know what happens on race days in York. And we're told, don't worry about the outside. And this really demonstrates how little they've understood their application. The kids are going to be at school. They won't hear what's going on outside. It'll be outside office hours. So when we're all coming home, when we're all resting, after the kids have come home, while they're doing their homework, while we're trying to have our family dinners, on breakfast mornings, on those lovely sunny days, when we as a community want to enjoy our gardens, our outside space, potentially over 120 people, a garden packed perhaps with up to 36 diners, if not more, and we're not sure if they're going to be standing or whatever, could be there celebrating, drinking, eating, making noise. And you've seen the way in which noise carries across our back gardens. And let's just think about the noise. Oh, fuck, my horse didn't get through. Oh, I love you, mate. On the last stag do, you're my fucking best friend. Imagine those profanities waving across the garden. Now, you, Mum, and your colleagues will be familiar with this 182 guidance. I don't think the applicant is, but paragraph 2.22 tells you protecting children from harm is not about what happens at school. Paragraph 2.22 gives us that specific example, the very specific example of protecting children from expletives. Now, that's at the lowest level. That's got nothing to do with the noise, the impact on family life, homes, sleeping times, work times, rest times. They want to create this vibrant outdoor operation in the heart of residential areas, in people's gardens. And I was shocked, and it's no doubt due to my friend's instructions, but heaters, outside heaters, blankets, awnings, you need no planning permission from those because they're unstationary, they're unfixed. If COVID has taught us anything, it has taught us how to take the maximum advantage of our outdoor spaces throughout the year in order to maximize potential and impact. The reality is, as my clients have demonstrated, the impact on the area of this intensification, of this professionalization of up to 120 people potentially using this at peak capacities, making full use of the double rooms and the sofa beds that are advertised and the amount of people that you can fit in for stag do's, wedding parties and other functions is huge. And so, Mum, we have this to say about this application. Give them what they want if you must. But one, the premises shall operate only as a hotel, that being a premises that is primarily used as an establishment providing overnight accommodation for customers. Two, access to the hotel facilities, such as but not limited to the bar, the restaurant, the private dining room, the play zone, shall be for hotel residents and their bona fide guests. Three, hotel residential capacity shall be limited to 24 residents. That's 2 per room. You'll have probably noted, like me, just how many times Mr. Stanton said small boutique, small hotel, small, small, small. Well, give them what they want, give them what they applied for, and limit it to 24. With the exception of staff, non-residents shall not be permitted in the hotel before 0800 hours or after 2300 hours, and then including the common room and guest rooms. Mum, the number of premises, so this is 5, the number of premises, the number of persons in the premises, excluding staff, shall not exceed 36. I get that number in the following way. 24 is the maximum if there is 2 per room, as per their own application, because let's not forget, there is a legal duty under section 158 to not make false statements. So whatever is advertised, let's focus on what they've applied for. The actual capacity if we take 8, 12 and 6 of dining, bar area and the private dining room brings us to 36, which effectively means that if you've got guests there, and don't forget they've said as in their submissions, they only now want hotel guests and their bona fide guests. So that means there's a further 12. If we keep it to 12, that will fill up the dining room and the bar. Ma'am, the residents are completely against the use of the outside area. I hope you forgive me for my own profanities, but you get an idea of just what's going to happen if you turn the garden of a private premises into an outdoor drinking and eating space. You're effectively putting a bar and restaurant with no effective soundproofing, no shielding, no coverage in the heart of people's homes, in the hearts of communities, which is just unsustainable and cannot promote the licensing objectives, undermines public nuisance, encourages disorder, therefore undermining the crime and disorder objective, and of course undermining the protection of children from harm. We say after 1700 hours, no smoker should be permitted there, and indeed there should be no more than 4 at any time. We welcome the condition of no draft beer and a limited selection of premium spirits. I'd really welcome an idea of how many premium spirits. So perhaps we can have a condition that says no draft beer and no more than, I don't know, say 6, 8 premium spirits. I don't know how many premium spirits Yorkshire makes. I'm sure they have a gin and we're told about a whiskey. So we should be able to number them and list those, given that the premises want to highlight and focus upon local products. The hours, we say the hours should be 0800 to 2300 hours. This, of course, allows for those outside people to leave the normal operation of the premises. Ma'am, there's no issue about the minibar in the rooms if that wants to be stocked, and we would welcome a condition, though I don't think they want that now, which says late night refreshment is to be no more than one period of the hour, but we should say that it should be directed only for room service or for guests. Ma'am, you'll have noticed on the plan, one of the rooms on the basement has a small courtyard. Given the way the application was made and sort of parties and so on, we'd like for that courtyard to have no alcohol and no licensable activities or indeed consumption. And after 5 o'clock, there'll be no more than 4 smokers that are going to be monitored in the outside area. Mum, the key takeaway from the reps prepared by the local residents is that although the Holgate Road itself might be busy, the surrounding areas, which includes outdoor space, gardens, parks, schools, church grounds, and so on, are quiet. They are residential. The intensification of what is proposed by this applicant in the ever-shifting effect of this application will be entirely unsuited to the character of the area, which of course is the test that you need to apply. So if you are going to give them anything, give them what they've asked for, which is a small hotel of limited capacity, limited operation to that small hotel guests and their few residents, and that will achieve those licensing objectives. So, ma'am, that very briefly is my outline. I'm able to talk about the area if you need to. I'm able to talk about the impact on children. I'm able to talk further about the impacts of nuisance, all of which we say are self-evident. I'm happy to address you more on the poverty of the application and the lack of clarity, which effectively fails to promote the licensing objectives and give you clear statements upon which to engage in a proper risk assessment. And I'm very happy to go through these particular conditions that I've set out as a fallback, because this will give the operator effectively what they want, which is a small hotel directly focused upon actual guests and their residents, and won't turn into what is being advertised by the operator, which is this place where you can come with your mates for parties, events, stag do's, and we can pack you into the rooms with our sofa beds and pull-out beds and whatever else they're getting in, so they can cram the rooms. If they want a small boutique luxury hotel, let's give them that, and let's make sure that we put the conditions in place to give them everything that they've asked for, and avoid, as a matter of priority, the adverse impacts that will almost certainly occur if this hotel is allowed to operate without the trammels provided by conditions in the way that they are proposing away from this application and this presentation. So, Ma'am, over to you and your colleagues for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your representation. Yes, as you say, there is now an opportunity to ask questions of the first representative, starting with the applicant. So, Mr. Staton, do you have any questions for Mr. Chair-Lambides?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, thank you. Then the subcommittee, do you have any questions for the representative? Can't see any hands going up from Councillors Hook or Cuthbertson. Could you expand a little more on something that was mentioned by one of the representatives who submitted a written representation? He mentioned nearby social housing for vulnerable adults. Could you explain to us some more about how you feel that is relevant to the licensing objectives in this application?
So, Ma'am, when the residents were looking at this application, you'll see, for example, on page 28, they're saying, oh, it's a small boutique hotel for 22 people. You know, apparently, I don't know, rich people don't make noise. I don't know if that's correct, but it's a myth that survives in licensing. And then when they got on the website to find out more about what was happening, they could see that the rooms were jumping up from 2 to 4 to 6 people. And then they were looking at the measures on the license, which were looking at people coming in, the use of the restaurant, the bar. They were then looking at functions and potential training, the promotions around race days. And so the idea that you've got groups of people, say, for example, a wedding party or a stag do, leaving and coming and going through these residential streets, going through these areas, perhaps carrying alcohol with them, perhaps bringing it back, coming back in high spirits or in the drink, interacting with vulnerable people, whether they're children or adults, interacting with the other environment is a source of concern. You'll know, I mean, we're not in the cumulative impact area, but you'll know paragraph 14.42 says, you know, taking into account the cumulative impact of these. So if we take into account the full extent of what this application could do without conditions in place, the impacts could be quite adverse for the local community. You know, there's been so much work that's done, for example, in the gardens at the rear. So the community has gone in there, they've improved the planting, they've changed the planting. For example, they've moved from planting around the edges to planting in the centre. So there are clearly sight lines that are available. It means people can't take it sort of advantage. It improves the character of the area. These are all perhaps small steps, but all small steps that are taken to improve the quality of life for everyone, including visitors that might stay in the former B&B or other B&Bs. But if you intensify the use, as the application will allow, if it's not rejected or controlled, then the consequences could be quite adverse.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the subcommittee? No. Okay. So next is an opportunity for Mr. Mitchell to make his representation. But before we do that, I'd like for us to take a comfort break because we do have quite a lot more of the hearing to go. So I think we need one at some point, and this seems like a suitable opportunity for a 10-minute break. Yes, so if everybody could meet back here at 11:35, please. Right, it looks like everybody's back, so we'll restart. Welcome back, everybody. Before we move on to the next representative opportunity to present their case, I once again just wanted to confirm that Councillor Hook, you could hear everything that was said in that last representation, just for
Absolutely, yes, I could, and I've now changed rooms, so hopefully my internet connection will be a lot better.
Excellent, good. Yes, just for everyone's benefit, just making sure that everyone on the panel has heard all of the evidence. Great, okay, thank you. So Mr. Mitchell, I'm trying to find you on screen. Oh, yes, there you are, hi. You have an opportunity now to present your case. You have up to 19.5 minutes or so to say what you'd like to say, so please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I hopefully won't take your full 19.5 minutes, but just by way of some background, I'm a resident in Holgate. I'm not in the St Paul Square area. I live about a mile away. My representations are made by letter 16th of May, which is at page 99. I'm also chair of governors of the St Paul's CV primary school, and I have discussed my representations with the acting head teacher, which I'll come back to. My representations are made in a personal capacity, and hopefully I'll just try to give a little bit more context and a little bit more kind of granular detail on what this application means for the community. I think I have two children at St Paul's Primary School. There is also a nursery school in the corner of St Paul's Square. I've been walking to and from that area since 2019, pretty much every morning and every evening on weekdays when schools are there. The St Paul's Primary School has around 189 children on roll. That's around 80 or so families, give or take. Many of the families live in the neighbouring properties around the area of where this of the applicant's premises is. I won't go back over what's in the letter, but hopefully I can try and bring to life a little bit what the area is actually like, because I think what the area is like is completely missing from this application, and how the premises sits in that area. The principal issue, I think, for the school and from a parent's point of view is safeguarding the children from harm. The premises sits, the rear of the applicant's premises sits pretty much directly opposite the entrance and exit to the primary school. The entrance and exit to the primary school is not the main school building. It is a small lane and alleyway which goes along the back of the properties onto Watson Terrace, and this exits pretty much directly into where the proposed drinking area and car park is of the applicant's premises. The road and the pavement's quite narrow around this area, and if there are two families walking either side, one usually has to give way by standing aside or walking onto the road. Children will scooter and ride their bikes to school. They'll also be dropped off. There's plenty of traffic around pickup time, drop-offs and pickup times. We're already dealing with goods vehicles which reverse down Watson Terrace, because that's the easiest entrance and access for a larger vehicle to the back of those premises, because there is another St Paul's Terrace, St Paul's Square street is otherwise a one-way street which you won't get a goods vehicle down easily. And yeah, there's plenty of instances. I had one the other day. The goods vehicle will just reverse straight back down the street and park outside. Now they shouldn't be doing that. There's perhaps a enforcement issue there, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with. It's been stressed in the application, in the submissions for the application, that well, this isn't any different to the previous use of the premises, but that's not true, because this is going to have a much longer, potentially long hours of drinking long hours of food, and a large number of guests catering for big events like weddings or conferences or race day meetings, whatever it is. Well, they all need additional services supplying to the premises, whether it's food or laundry services or drinks or whatever. There is going to be undoubtedly an increased traffic risk, and that affects the children, and that puts them in harm's way. The year 6 children will walk to and from school themselves. Year 5 children will generally walk home themselves from Easter term onwards, and unaccompanied. The other issue is there's noise issue from the proposed use of the gardens. Well, the garden probably sits. I haven't measured it. I'm not trying to mislead, because I'd say we're talking tens of meters, not particularly a long way, 20 to 50 meters away from the school playground. And the school playground sits to the probably the northwest of the garden. That noise is going to easily carry on a prevailing wind, and it's the kind of noise that Mr. Charalambidis, I won't repeat, but that's the kind of noise we're concerned about, and that's not just when school sits. That's when schools, principally probably when children are leaving. The children also walk to and from the school to what's called the dock, which is a small grass patch which is used as a school playing field. That's probably even closer to the garden premise of the applicant's premises, and they also walk to and from the church, and they'll also walk round to the front of the premises to cross the road by the Pelican Crossing. I've seen the applications, the applicant's application and submissions are all seem to be well, unfairly summarised them perhaps as, well, everyone else has got a licence, so why not us? Well, a number of properties may very well have a licence, but these licences are not being used to their full extent, and they certainly don't involve large numbers of people in the rear of the premises drinking or attending weddings. It just doesn't happen. I'm walking there all the time, and we don't see it. We certainly don't hear it, because it's there's nothing there to hear. Those other properties don't operate in the way the applicant proposes. And for instance, the Volunteers Arms, as far as I'm aware, doesn't generally open 4 until 5 p.m. The school. The other thing to say is the school recently was Ofsted inspected. One of the comments by the Ofsted inspection was the school sits at the heart of its community. Well, that community really has not been engaged in relation to this application. I'm not aware of any real meaningful engagement or discussions by the applicant with the potential effects on the school and how they could be mitigated. And I think that says something about the applicant and their intentions for this property. I don't have anything else to say on this unless you've got any further questions. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your representation. There is an opportunity now to ask questions of the representative, and again we'll start with the applicant. Mr. Staton, do you have any questions for Mr. Mitchell?
Mr. Mitchell, what time does the school pickup start? Is it 3:15? The school closes.
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, so I probably should have mentioned that. So, school pickup is staggered. Will begin at 3:10 for a normal pickup. However, there's after school clubs which will generally go on till 4:15. There's then a wraparound care which will go on to 6. So actually, families are leaving from 10 past. Generally from 10 past 3 all the way to 6 p.m.
And I think you said that the playground is between, I think, 20 and 50 metres from the rear.
I think that's probably approximately right. Yeah.
Well, I've just unsigned, possibly less than, done a as the crow flies using the map on page 189, and it's over 1/10 of a kilometre, so something over 100 metres. And you'll see from that map there's the social housing, or the between the rear of the premises as well, and the playground. I think it's fair to say as a screen from the premises.
I'd be very surprised if it's that far, and I'd be very surprised if the sound wouldn't carry from the playground.
Yeah.
We don't hear kids.
Well, I have nothing else to add, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the subcommittee for Mr. Mitchell? Councillor Hogan, Councillor Cuthbertson, have you got any questions? Councillor Cuthbertson?
Thank you, Chair. It's really to verify that, as far as I can see, there are no other rear garden licensable activities in the buildings which either front or rear onto St Paul's Square, if I make myself clear there.
Yeah, yes, you do make yourself clear. I don't see any use of those gardens, and I'm there every day of the week.
So, as somebody who's well connected with the area, and incidentally, the nursery has a similar pickup time and out of school club hours to the primary school, which you just mentioned. But effectively, it seems this proposed use of the rear garden space is the only one in Watson Terrace and St Paul's Square.
I think that's fair to say.
Is that what you see, Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, sir. And in relation to the nursery, I previously, well, children attended the nursery and have been a governor at the nursery. They have a long pickup as well, which will be from anything from 3, half 3, and then the after school club for the school is actually usually used in the nursery building, so that's till 6 p.m. for nursery children as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, are there any other questions from the subcommittee for Mr. Mitchell? No? Okay. So in that case, there's an opportunity for the representatives to sum up if there's anything else you've thought of that you want to add, or anything, key points you want to summarise. You have up to 5 minutes each. So we'll start with the representatives and we'll go in the same order that you'd spoken. So Mr. Chair Lambides and then Mr. Mitchell, and then the applicant will have the same opportunity. Yes, up to 5 minutes, please, Mr. Chair Lambides, for your summation.
Mum, thank you very much. Mum, in the presentation that Mr. Stanton made from the part of his clients, he said this. He said, the large numbers are illusory. He said there will be a limited clientele. And he said management will provide a well-controlled number of residents, which is all well and good. In my submission on behalf of the residents, I set out, I hope not too speedily, and I hope with some details, some clear conditions to meet that, to challenge the so-called illusion that the premises is not advertising these huge numbers, which in fact they are. I gave them the opportunity to control the numbers and meet what he says is going to be this high quality, small hotel, limited to residents, limited to guests, limited drinks, limited impact, and not one single question and not one engagement. Now, I represent some at least 7 families and a number of others. How concerning is it that we've come here and said, this application is causing us concern. You've not taken into account our location. You've not taken into account, as you're required by the Section 182 guidance, the community engagement and the community vision, because your decision according to the Section 182 guidance, is to make a decision in the wider community interest and not the narrow interest of the operator. We've offered you this olive branch, and it has been dismissed, ignored, and not engaged with. And certainly the residents that are communicating to me on the WhatsApp are quite appalled by that. And I'm going to say, Ma'am, you and your colleagues ought to be as well. So, Ma'am, the key here is location. The residents didn't want to talk, and I'm really grateful to Mr. Mitchell for coming along and speaking. But you can see from the representations, the very clear and labelled plans at page 55 and 57 of the supplementary information tells you all you need to know about the character of the area, the importance to children, the importance to family, the importance of their outside space. And this hotel wants to use those sunny evenings to promote its business in its own commercial interest, with having no regard to the actual impact that it will have. The application today is even amended to let us know, don't worry, the outdoor music that will play from 8 until 10, where people will be able to sit from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. and just drink without any food, will be low background music, which we will monitor. Imagine that, 12 hours of drinking with low background music in your garden, facing a school. Mum, that's all you need to know. I mean, if you're as appalled as I am and my residents are, you'll no doubt dismiss the application out of hand. However, if you don't wish to do so, then I would urge you to follow the conditions that I have set out as giving the operator the small, controlled, limited clientele they've asked for. And if, Ma'am, in their closing submissions, they try and step back from that, Section 158 of the Licensing Act makes it a criminal offence to make false statements to the committee or in their application. Why is it that they're saying 22 on their application form, some 50 to 100 odd in their website advertising, which is live and has been live for months, and then today will not agree to the conditions I've set out, which is to give them exactly what they want for the capacities they want in terms of what they're doing inside, because the focus of operation has always been inside, not an outside 12-hour, 24/7 potential drinking venue, cheek to jowl to people's back gardens. Mum, therein is the application. Of course, I'm available to answer any questions that might arise from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was pretty much spot on 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So the next representative to sum up is Mr. Mitchell. You also have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll be even less. I will. Picking up on one of the questions from a learned friend, my friend Mr. Stanton, the distance I measured on Google Maps is about 60 meters. If you take it to the threshold of the property, so I'm not trying to. Maybe it's slightly more than 60 meters, but I think the point is this is about protecting the children from harm, and harm means language as well as behaviour and everything else that goes with it. There are large numbers of families around congregating, standing around the exit to the property, to the using the facilities around the community facilities, which are the land around the dock and the church. The children using those facilities all day, every day, pretty much they're in school. This application has the potential to be completely at odds with that. Putting all these children and families at harm is completely inappropriate. This is a silent, pretty much residential area if you spend time around there. I think the only other thing I'd draw your attention to is the fact that even one of our local councillors, Mr. Taylor, objects to this, which I'm no expert in licensing, but I understand relatively unusual, because that is the strength of the community feeling, the community he represents. And I'm afraid it's a community the applicant, well, as far as I know, is not a member of and is not engaged with, and it's yeah, for those reasons I hope that the application is rejected, or significant restrictions put in place to limit any potential harm. So unless you've got any questions, those are my submissions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your summation. And now the applicant, Mr. Station, you have 5 minutes to sum up.
Thank you, Ma'am. I mean, you've heard very dramatic submissions both before and recently by Mr. Charalambides for a group of local residents. It's not entirely clear to me how many, but 7 families and others, he says. But he characterised it by, large numbers of drinkers, cheek by jowl with people's back gardens. That's exactly not what this applicant is looking to achieve. It is looking to run a high quality boutique hotel. I think the maximum number of beds, if assuming all sofa beds, which are really focus on children sharing rooms with their parents, would be a total of 42, not the hundreds that Mr. Charalambides seems to suggest are going to infest the premises and cause all sorts of problems for the neighbours. The applicant has sought to address concerns, agreed with the safeguarding officer that the outside area would not be used beyond 10 p.m. Happy to close the back gate at 10 p.m. to stop people entering that way. It's focusing on using the front of the premises. Mr. Bradley and his team have no wish to put any children or in the neighbourhood at harm or put them in the way of any upset or inconvenience. Their operating schedule attached to the application notice sets out all of the ways that they intend to address the licensing objectives. The application is for limited numbers, not as Mr. Charalambides' numbers would make the whole venture I think uneconomic, I imagine. But the fact is that we're looking at really a hotel offering with restaurant facilities and some outside dining. We're not looking at a Wetherspoons or such like. The picture painted by Mr. Charalambides in his closing submissions is so far from what Mr. Bradley intends. He's as we're painting a gross picture to put forward his client's position, but that is not what this application is about. I would ask you to grant the application in its terms as set out in the application notice and as clarified in the case summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Charalambides, did you have were you wanting to speak? Or
I was trying to find a raised hand. Yes, it's just a legal point. Now, it's very significant because there's an application form, and the application form requires you to set out the particulars of your application. So, for example, if I want a vertical drinking establishment, I put that in my application and people are consulted on it and they can comment on it, because we all know we are risk assessing a vertical drinks establishment. If I want a small boutique hotel, I put down, as on page 38, we have 12 bedrooms likely to accommodate a maximum of 22 guests. So then I risk assess and comment on the basis of 22 desks. Now, 22, sorry, guests. Now, because he was forced to, Mr. Stanton says, yeah, well, we do have those sofa beds, as I said, we're advertising. And he now says, we've no way of checking this, there'll be a maximum of 42 guests. So the hotel capacity that you are now risk assessing, that we commented on, has gone from 22 to 42, nearly double capacity. In effect, what we see here is an application that has been advertised and applied for on a false and misleading premise, because it had to be corrected. So local residents have not had the opportunity to comment upon a 42 maximum guest hotel, plus the 36 in the garden and the 18 in the dining room, 6 in the private dining room, and now 12 in the bar, and how it needs to be. So one of your considerations, Mum, as a matter of law must be, is the application you're now being asked to look at today so different to what has been consulted on that the only option you have is to reject the application so that they can go away, do their homework, provide some precision, and give the residents and the wider community a proper opportunity to comment upon what they're actually doing, rather than this sifting premise that seems to change every time someone makes a submission on behalf of the applicant. So it's just that small legal point I'd like you and your colleagues to think about when you retire. Thank you very much.
I will give the applicant an opportunity to respond to that directly. And then when we go into our private deliberations, you'll see Sandra's appeared on the screen. She's our solicitor. She'll be there to advise us as well. So we'll take advice on all of that. Mr. Staten, if you would like to respond directly to clarify the numbers.
I did put up a clapping hand. I wasn't applauding Mr. Chair on the leadies. I got the wrong icon. I've taken the number 42 from the plan attached to the licensing application, which shows the bedrooms and what have you. So that's where I got 42 from. That's all. But I still ask you to grant the application. Okay,
so thank you everyone for all your representations and answering questions and everything. Members of the subcommittee, are there any final piece of information or points of clarification that you feel we need before we go into our private deliberations? Any final questions, points of clarification? No from Councillor Hook, anything from Councillor Cuthbertson? Yes, go ahead.
If I may, it seems clear to me that there is some doubt over the numbers. So I don't know if Mr. Staten wants to say anything more about it, but Mr. Charolamidis has possibly found some more numbers that may or may not be there, but I think it would be useful to have a confirmation from Mr. Staten as to what exactly is being proposed in terms of numbers.
Yeah. So the covers for the various aspects are 12 for the bar, 18 for the restaurant, and 36 in the exterior area. As I say, that the diners will need to pre-book because it's because of the limited dining area space available. The maximum number of beds, assuming that all sofa beds were occupied by children of guests, would be 42. But I think Mr. Bradley feels that it's highly unlikely that on any given day there will be 100% occupancy. So those are the numbers. 12, 18, 36, total of I think 66 diners maximum, and guests or beds 42.
And those rooms which have space for more than just 2 people, where you're talking about there being sofa beds, would that be limited to family groups with children, or is that also available for adult groups? A representative talked about specifically about race goers, hen do's, stag do's, that sort of thing. Are you proposing or willing to accept any limitations on those sorts of groups?
I'm not convinced, ma'am, you could restrict numbers, but I think there are a limited number of sofa beds, as I understand it from. There are, out of the 12 rooms, there are 7 with sofa beds. So, but it gives us, Mr. Bradley calculates a total of 42.
Okay. Thank you. And I just have one final question about areas suitable for smoking. Are you proposing that the outdoor area be a designated smoking area? And that's the kind of only place where guests and visitors will be smoking at any time of day, or is there another smoking area on the Holgate Road side of the premises?
No, there would be no smoking on the Holgate Road side. It's not desired to have smoking in the on that side of the premises, only in the rear area.
So hotel guests who want to smoke could be using that outdoor area for smoking at any time?
Yes,
Yeah.
but yes, in theory, yes.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I can't see an indication from Councillor Sokol-Cuthbertson that they have any further questions or points of clarification. So thank you again, everybody, for your time today. We will take everything relevant into consideration in our private deliberations and try to come to a decision today and then let you know as soon as possible. So I'll close this public hearing now so we can have private deliberations. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon.
Okay.